this is a new interview for KCrush Magazine. I'm your host, film critic, and journalist Carolyn Hinds. At this episode, I'm going to be interviewing creative director Anne Barry and I guess you could say like multi-genre artist, because you're a singer, a performer, producer, writer. You're just like a whole smorgasbord of talent, Rainbow Chan, to talk about their visual short film / music video, Seven Sisters, which gives an interesting insight into the Weitou culture, which is a group of women who have their own dialect and language to do the bridal lament, which is a song that you sing as you're being taken from your home into the bridal it will be called the bridal carriage to get married. And it's an interesting history. Just in this one music video, I think you guys captured like a really clean synopsis of like the idea of what this culture is. But first of all, thank you so much for speaking to me and for doing this interview with me.
Pleasure. Happy to.
Great. So my first question is for both of you. So I did some research. I was looking on the Capture 48 website, and I see that this isn't the first collaboration that you and Rainbow have done together. So this is technically your third. You've done a music video for a song, Oblivion, but you also did like a short documentary about Rainbow's journey into like discovering herself and her heritage in Hong Kong and in the Weitou tribe particularly. So talk to me about Rainbow. First, tell me, how did you find Anne and the Capture 48 team?
Oh, they actually found me.
Yeah. Oh, they did? Okay.
It was a cold call email.
Yeah. So we were looking at 88 Rising, and one of Rainbow's songs, Let Me, was featured on their YouTube channel, and it was a really cool song. We saw Rainbow was in town, and at that point, I think we were really, Capsule 48 was really, we still are interested, but also like we weren't so much a commercial production house. We were focused on making short documentaries of just different stories around Asia. And yeah, we thought it'd be cool to interview Rainbow. Rainbow was a very gracious host, invited us over, treated us to to snacks and things, and introduced our family. So we kind of just hit it off after that. And then and shortly after you asked us if we would be interested in doing a music video.
Yeah, it was so cool because at that point in particular, I didn't get to travel back to Hong Kong very often in the last couple of years because of my research and for work opportunities. I've been able to go back more. But at that time, I didn't really have that many connections of friends in Hong Kong, my birthplace, but somewhere that feels in a way quite distant emotionally sometimes. So it was really great to make some new friends in Hong Kong with Anne and Ian, and at the same time feel so creatively connected in terms of the aesthetics and the vision and just conversations that we were having. So yeah, it's been such a lovely journey to see each other's creative paths blossom over the couple of years. And everything we've done together, I'm so proud of. So yeah.
Yes, and then I looked through all the videos on the Capture 48 website, and also your music videos, Rainbow, and I kind of saw like there's a lot of symmetry in the visual styles that in the products that you both produce. Where like Rainbow, a lot of your videos are very experimental, and kind of have like a surrealist and a fantasy element to them. Like I think your very first music video was one where you were covered in fish. I was like, what's happening here? But that was so interesting. But
yes,
but there's other.
I still don't know what's happening to this day in that video.
But there's other videos where like it's very futuristic, and then there's some where you're performing on stage, like you're doing like a stage performance for your songs, and like I think you're very experimental as a performance artist in general, and it comes through in your music. Like all of your songs have very distinct compositions and melodies and meanings to them. And for the work that Capture 48 does, for like even the commercial work that you do is not very typical, like your team, I think, does a very good job of making sure that each video, for especially the marketing videos, is very distinct to the product being advertised. And even when you're doing like even the short mini videos for like independent artists. I saw there was one for a company, forgive me for not remember the name, but produces their own sauces, and then for another that's a female tailor doing bespoke work in Hong Kong. And like you make sure that the work that you're producing matches your client perfectly. So talk to me. I want you to talk about just coming up with the concept of Seven Sisters, both visually but also thematically, because Rainbow, like this began as a stage production called the Bride's Lament, where like it was 5 years. In reading up on your profile, it took you 5 years to like just like do the research and gather everything for this, and you already had an idea of what the stage production would look like. But a music video is very different to a stage production. A music video, you're moving through spaces, you know, you're moving through time, and you have a very short space of time to tell the audience exactly what you want them to get. So first of all, tell me about working together to come up with the visual concept for this music video. And as the director, Anna, I want you to go first.
Sure. Okay. So I think, Rainbow, you sent me a beat to begin with and a mood board. And then you told me, then we jumped on a call, and then you talked about the theme, basically like bridal laments. And then around that time, I was watching a lot of sci-fi, I think. And I also kind of love, watching like very pop music videos. So in a sense, like I wanted this really epic, like I wanted to take what the major themes we had and then turn it into something that felt very epic, and bigger than what it was. Yeah, and then I think we kind of like workshopped, like I think we bounced a couple ideas back and forth, and then a week later, Rainbow, you sent me like basically a completed song. Like it was so fast. And I even told you at the time, I was like, how did you just churn this out? Like, you know, it was like, boop. Yeah. And then I don't know, that it was really collaborative. I really loved the process of it. And then even like whistling down further on, like even things like when we incorporate dance into the piece itself, that was also incredibly collaborative, where like I'd say, okay, Rainbow, like what do you think about this, like this dance is going to look something like this or feel something like this, and then Rainbow would go and workshop it, and then send me videos back and be like, oh, what do you think about this, like we're thinking of this move. And then yeah, so it was very collaborative. And yeah, what Rainbow, what about you? Do you have what's your perspective of it?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, definitely in the collaborative element, I think it's really amazing, because it's like you're thinking about say movement, and Anne's thinking about, well, how will that movement help us edit from one shot into the next to create the story. And it's all about image making and world building. And so for me, it's like, yeah, taking little bits of the puzzles and then trying to connect it together. And then also through the performance as well, in terms of like the singing style. And I think what was really special was also being able to involve a lot of different community members in the film. So in the film itself, you get to see an appearance from my female elders, who I actually have been learning these traditional bridal laments from, and they lived this history of being married out and being in these arranged marriages. So to have a moment in the song to really acknowledge that they are the the fountain from which I've been able to draw upon was really special. And also we filmed inside this historic village house. A family friend of ours allowed us to film inside this old house, which was actually going to be knocked down soon afterwards because of they just had to renovate it. But I think Anne was able to capture just so many details in that house, including like a bedroom and staircase and this layers of like things falling apart and the fragility of time and space. And of course that's, you know, such a strong theme for this song as well, about losing your identity, losing your language, and all those things. So I think, yeah, it was just a beautiful project that was very personal, but at the same time could be extended out and kind of have a community around it.
Yeah, so the first of all, I'm super impressed that you only sent her like the storyboard and like a few phrases in the music before you even had the song, and she had to you had to come up with a concept. And I think that's actually really, I think that's ingenious in a way, because it kind of like, as a director, and I'm sure it kind of gives you a bit more leeway to be more creative. You know, you're like, it give you time to, like, you know what, like, my imagination is the limit here, and like, instead of having like the preconceived notion of the song, you're just like, let me come up with as many ideas as possible, and then once you heard the song, then you could select which, I guess, concept suited it better. So, but for Rainbow, in making the song, the process is interesting to me, because I'm very interested in the fact that there is based on a language that was spoken not only by your matrilineal ancestors and heritage, but it kind of made me think of how, like, within cultures, there's many different forms of languages and dialects, and it can be gender specific. Because a few years ago, I actually saw a documentary about a language called the Nushu language, which was a language written and spoken only by women in the Han, Yao, and Miao tribes of China. So I was very interested to find that there was another language spoken by women in Chinese culture, and that this one and the music is in particularly about something very personal to women. You know, it's talking about patriarchy and being able to like voice their opinions against patriarchy in song. So talk to me about how much that means to you as a writer and as a woman, because I noticed in your music, a lot of your songs talks about entering, maintaining, and leaving relationships on your own terms. I found a lot of your songs are about those three things in particular. And then to have a project like that last 5 years, basically about a language and a song and a type of song, a genre of song dedicated to women verbalizing their power. So talk to me about that connection for you, how much that means to you as a creative and as a woman, and also, I guess, in your relationship with your mom, because this comes from your mom's side of the family.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in a household full of women. I have 3 sisters. My parents kept trying for a boy, and then when the 4th one came out as a girl, they were like, okay, we give up. So in that sense, I think I've always had very strong female role models around me. But I think, yeah, I mean, when I first started out in the music industry over 10 years ago, as someone in Australia who doesn't fit the typical kind of white man stereotype of what an electronic musician might be, I was quite shocked when I was quite young, like seeing the sexism and the racism that was very prevalent in the music industry. And so there was something in me early on that really, through music, wanted to challenge those stereotypes and to discuss and have dialogues about identity and agency, and trying to platform women and non-binary voices, you know, lifting other people up as well through collaborations. And so to then come across or to rediscover or to relearn something so closely my personal heritage that is a women's only space, really, that these songs are extremely codified and have all these layers of metaphor and I guess allusions, so that the women can sing these protest songs and defiance songs without getting in trouble, basically, without other men understanding what they were actually saying. I just thought it was so badass, and I loved it. And so I think you know, historically these women also was seen as they had no rights, no status, yet in that system of oppression, they were so ingenious and also turned to other women for this community and solidarity. From, you know, little girls all the way up to old women, there's this really beautiful form of kinship between the women. And so to see it being ritualized through music and through songs, and that's how they passed on knowledge through this oral tradition, which is sadly disappearing now. I just thought I need to step in at this point and be, I feel it in my blood. I need to step in and learn these songs before it's too late. So of course, to inject that with my own kind of personality and my own experimental pop lens, I think is really interesting because it reimagines and re-enlivens a traditional form. And of course, the fact that the arranged marriage ritual has ended is a good thing, but I still think with that loss, the knowledge being disappeared is also really sad. So it's about grappling with those tensions, grappling with being a minority voice, and even though the world might feel like it's against you, still fighting against that and really using the power of your voice and music and art to have a stance and to have defiance.
Yeah, I just think is the way that music is a way for anyone to relate to, because it's like, even if you don't understand what they're saying, you understand what it means. Because I watched another video by a performer called Chun Yun Liu, and she did a performance of a bridal lament, and she played one, and it was like, even if you don't understand what the lyrics are, what the words are saying, you can feel it. You get the sense of what it is. And it's the same thing for your song, because yes, your song is in English, but I think even if you have sung it in Cantonese or even in Weitou, anyone watching it with the visuals that that's used in the film understands exactly what it is. It's like your character, who she's getting ready for marriage, but she's fighting it. Like she's physically, she has on the bridal garment, she has on the traditional red, and then she's getting ready, but then she's being covered, but then like the 7 sisters who I'm taking as the dancers are helping her prepare for it, but they're also trying to protect her from it. I kind of saw the dancers as both her helpers, but her protectors at the same time. And then there's this character who's in all black, which, first of all, kudos to the costume designer. Like, I love the costumes in this video, but the black one, I was like, okay, come through, goth mama. Like, she was like, with the big hat, the lace gloves covered in lace, and like, but it's like, she's like a dark specter. That's what the marriage is. The marriage is there coming to trap you. And I thought it's interesting you had both the traditional red, but also what we would call the modern white, which was ironically started by, I think it was Queen Victoria, who started the whole tradition of wearing white for weddings. And then once that made it over to China, that became a traditional part of Chinese weddings, where like you could have the traditional red wedding, but then you also have a second Christian wedding where the bride wears like traditional Western clothing. And I like that you put that into the show, into the doc. I keep wanting to call it a documentary, but into the music video, I think it kind of works like that. But into the music video, where you're showing women, no matter if you're getting married in a traditional sense or in a modern sense, we're still kind of being trapped by marriage in a way, and like you're telling the audience, this doesn't only happen in Chinese traditional cultures. This is happening to women in Western, modernized, contemporary times. Women still feel this way, even in entering marriage of their choice. They still feel like there's something that could trap them. They're still feeling like they can't say everything they want to say. And I thought it was very important to have that in the music video, to show that it's not just, because there'll be people that say, oh, like, this is just like Chinese or indigenous cultures who have this whole like women getting trapped on forced marriage. I'm like, nah, this happens to Western women too. So Anna, I want you to talk to me about making sure that you incorporated that into the music video to show it's traditional but also contemporary women that experience this kind of the patriarchy of marriage, because marriage is a patriarchal tradition.
Yeah, actually you kind of hit it right on the nose. That was kind of why that was added in as well. I mean, there's many different reasons we added that in. Like Rainbow, I think you were also saying, from my perspective, I wanted something that was, because in one part of the video, she kind of transforms it's almost like she's transforming to the bride, and those costumes are sort of blended together. And that was sort of the reason I wanted to have, like, it's not, maybe like audiences might not completely relate to the Chinese bridal outfit, but then if you have an outfit that is a little bit more like maybe a little bit more traditional looking, they would also maybe get that it's kind of, yeah, there's like a relationship there as well. And I think there was also a kind of I mean, Rainbow, you were saying that one of your ancestors was also like a pearl farmer,
diver, yeah,
a pearl diver.
Oh, not well, shallow. It was very shallow waters. So yeah, oyster farmer. Yeah, there's no like deep diving. No.
She was a snorkeler. She was a snorkeler instead of a diver.
Snorkeler. Yeah, just on the top of the water. Yeah. So yeah, the pearl being significant in that sense, and also I think for me the symbolism of pearls has always been like sort of like the teardrops. And I use it in my visual arts practice too. I use the motif of pearls a lot. So then to have that in the costume, I think it was so nice the way it interacted with the lights and under the neon, and yeah.
I think, yeah, that's also why we decided to use the texture of pearl, like that sort of white, because I mean, this is just more like from an art direction point of view. It's just the way that we knew that we wanted to film some of the shots, especially this kind of like, it's actually very K-pop in a way, when you have dance moves and you have this driving camera that sort of pushes towards different dance actions. And yeah, we instead of a very elaborate K-pop set, we did it in like an alleyway next to our rental house place. So, but the way that the neon lights kind of reflect off of those pearls that was a texture that we knew that we wanted. Yeah, and in integrating that, the modern look as well of like the outside world into that video was also like the contrast that we wanted to create for that part.
Yeah.
May I just add?
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna do a side note. Is speaking of the contrast between modern and tradition, the red look was really actually authentically, if I may use that word, traditional, because the skirt I was wearing is actually the wedding skirt that my auntie's mother wore in her arranged marriage. And my auntie is the lady in all black, as you pointed out earlier. So she's my mum's best friend, and very kindly agreed to be the matchmaker character in the video clip, symbolized by the ominous outfit. But I was very lucky that I actually got to wear this heirloom wedding skirt for the video clip.
I think that's like score extra points for symbolism, because I actually think that's actually pretty cool. And in talking about the pearl, the first music video also kind of does make sense now with the pearl, because you do have like pearls in the first music video, so that connection kind of actually makes sense. But something else I want to talk about with regards to the two things I want to talk about with regards to art direction and themes of traditional and modern. I want to talk about the specific locations chosen, the alleyway and the house, but then also the downtown streets of like Hong Kong with the neon lights that Hong Kong is known for. I want to talk about that, but first, continue with the costuming, something I thought was very interesting. We had the traditional red symbolizing the kwankwa, which is the traditional red bridal dress, and then the white pearl wedding dress. But I also thought it was interesting, there's scenes with you, Rainbow, in clothing that made me think of the 1960s, which made me think of the Cultural Revolution in China, where that's when a lot of, like, I think in doing the research about the Weitou, like that's when the language really started to die out, Cultural Revolution. And I thought it was interesting that you kind of, to me, again, the clothing choices kind of reference that, because you have like the Mary Jane shoes, the socks, the skirt, and the pigtails with the ribbon tied and everything. It made me think of that. So talk to me again about that particular costume choice, because it made me again think of modern versus traditional, and then also like that outfit was kind of like a connecting point between the traditional and the modern. Like, that's how I kind of saw it.
Yeah, I should mention at this point that our amazing costume designer is Rachel Song, who's based in Hong Kong, but I actually first met her in Sydney when she was studying fashion there. The outfit with the pigtails and the kind of like I guess the very traditional kind of neckline with the buttons and is I think we wanted that look to seem very like she's vulnerable and she is like a girl, because a lot of these women, when they would enter into these arranged marriages, were very young. And we really love the label Yap Pit, which are Hong Kong based fashion designers who reinvent traditional, I guess, Chinese fabrics and textiles techniques, and often they'll use like knots, and they'll use at the moment they've got a collection that's all about tea, like using tea to dye the fabrics. And so this I love the way that they are able to take something markedly traditional but add a new spin to it. So the texture is this kind of really beautiful micro mesh that's very Y2K, and then the skirt has all these traditional coins on them, but then it's got this kind of like modern kind of silhouette. So I think it's just a good way for people to get an insight into something that feels like distant, but then be able to see these pop kind of references too, you know, at the same time. And I think the whole thing about my practice, and I imagine like Anne's practice too, is that it's a very much like a remix kind of culture in a way, that it is a pastiche, it is homage, it is taking visual references from films and fashion and the everyday, and being able to reconstitute it all into a new image. And I think that's the fun part of making things that is like kind of for the masses in a way. There's these entry points and references that people can understand, yet there's something unique and distinct about the new thing that's created.
Yeah, I think like especially with the medium of making a music video, you don't have to really stick to, like, we're not making a period piece. Like it's inspired by kind of like the period piece look, but it's also inspired by, let's say, I don't know, K-pop or sci-fi or whatever. And then we are taking, and actually, I mean, I think if our mood board was like kind of like fashion imagery a lot of times. So we were like, okay, everyone's gonna look like I don't know, like a fashion model, but actually they're, you know, it's 100 years ago, but it's not really 100 years ago. It's kind of like Star Wars, where it's like, you know, many, many years ago in a galaxy far away kind of thing. They just make it, you're world building the world that's your reinterpretation of what it could be. Yeah.
No, and so like, in going from that, talk about the filming location. As I mentioned, like something really interested me with, we had the juxtaposition of old and new. You have it in the set locations as well, which is like the house. Like Rainbow mentioned that you filmed in, and like those walled alleyways, which looks very old and very like it could be filmed in a walled city, like from 100, 200, 300 years ago. But then there's scenes where she's in the traditional red in the middle of like middle of the crosswalk, and she has the neon lights that Hong Kong is known for around her, you know, as the backdrop. And I thought, again, that's like, and again, because those neon lights are very synonymous with sci-fi as well, like you do have like this sci-fi element to it, and then also the traditional and her sense of like moving through different spaces like this. She like the character, the bride, feels almost like she's a time traveler. Like she feels like she's a time traveler to me, and then she just gets stuck down here. She's just dancing, and no one can understand what is she doing here. But she's just like, I'm just claiming this space. So talk to me about the filming locations and like the pros and the cons and the challenges, because I imagine it could not have been easy filming, especially in the closed alleyways with like Rainbow and the 7 dancers and everything.
Yeah, so I think we wanted to world build first, and then set this scene of the very traditional Chinese wedding, and go through all the rituals, and then have that feeling that Rainbow is almost being, you know, captured by, or like being held by, and you can interpret it how you will, but like society or tradition, or being forced to go through some sort of traditional process. And then of course throughout it, there's this element of like, you know, do you have a choice to do something else? Like, can you escape? And there's this element of choice in it. So the end is really, it's kind of like choose your own ending in a way. Like I wanted to add in shots where there's a possibility of like breaking free, and then so there's breaking free in the modern world, and of course there's a contrast between these sort of older, I don't want to say old fashioned, but anyway, just like older fashioned like wedding garments on the modern streets of Hong Kong, and then contrasting that with, of course, maybe what is a reality for a lot of people as well, and a lot of women, which is just to state you are just subjected to that fate. The hands come across at the very end, and that's the end of that story. So I guess in those sense, like the two locations are contrasted in that way. And I think the one that we shot on the street, I mean, I wouldn't say there was like a lot of production difficulty in shooting. You're free to shoot on the streets of Hong Kong in certain locations, and it's fine. But I think it was just like we had finished doing so many scenes that day, and I was like, hey, Rainbow, there's one more scene, I'm so sorry. And then I let like the whole crew go basically, except for maybe like just a few people left. And then I was like, you're just gonna have to dance around on the street, and it's just gonna be really tiring. And then Rainbow was a total champ about it, and was like, all right, let's do this, let's like end this strong, and gave a really great performance. Well, there's also a part where like we've cropped out a lot of onlookers. I mean, I don't mind having a few onlookers actually in the background who are just like, eh? But you can't have too many, obviously. It's really distracting. So like we had to like crop out these people that were like, ooh, like having a beer on the street and being like, oh, something to see tonight. Yeah. But yeah, Rainbow, I mean, like, I think you were also, you're completely shot after that whole thing.
Yeah, mainly because the crown I was wearing on my head was literally like 10 kilos, and my neck was so sore all day from having a like cable tied to my head.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, the locations, I think, kind of, they're another character in the storytelling, and there's something kind of unpredictable about filming in these kind of public spaces, and that you might get a random taxi that sort of kind of comes at you, or you might get people looking, and that's going to create a slightly different energy in the performer as well. Almost there's a sense of urgency in my eyes, because it's almost like we need to get the shot as soon as possible, but I'm kind of also running away, and so I think it's quite fun in that sense, and you have to be really strategic, and everything kind of becomes a bit heightened in terms of, okay, we've got to get the shot right now, let's go, and that kind of makes it quite fun, especially when you're working with people you really trust, and then it's like extra rewarding at the end of those like little adventure shoots.
And I thought I love the music video in general, because I really do like the look and the feel of it, and of course the central point of the music video is the song. Remember when you talk about the song, because the lyrics are very interesting to me, because the lyrics are so like one of the main two of the main lines especially in the chorus is someone's daughter, then a good wife, shut your mouth, then turn a blind eye. And the hook of the song is to take back your control. And the melody, I think, is different to anything that you've done for any of this, for the songs that I've listened to and the music videos that I've watched, because you get the melody of the traditional song in it, like it's not lost, but you're turning it into your own song. You have a little bit of electronica and a little bit, I think, of pop, but then there's a slight jazz feel to it, a slight modern jazz feel to it. And talk to me about composing and constructing the song and the lyrics, because another main line in the song is "Homie now Timo" with Timoy, which is I guess is Weitou. Could you tell me what that means? Because I noticed in the translation where you have the lyrics across, that those two words aren't translated. Those two words you use the Chinese characters. So I thought it was actually an interesting choice, where you're telling the audience you don't get to know what these two words mean. This is just but I want to know. So talk to me about composing and writing the song and the lyrics.
Yeah, so the word Zimoy means sister. And it's not just blood sisters, but anyone you know, in the sense that becomes like in your fold of people who support you. And so, and these songs, historical songs, were shared in what they call sister houses, Zimoy. And so having that as like one of the hooks in the song, I think it was really important to again acknowledge that that the new melody has stemmed through the oral tradition of so many sisters before me. It's a kind of funny story. So like many years ago, like maybe like 10 years ago, I had a dream, and it's the only time this has ever happened to me. And this is not a fake story, this is real. Where I dreamt a whole melody or whole phrase in total, and I woke up and I was like, I need to write this melody down. And it was the whole and for years I didn't know where to put this melody. It just didn't feel right in any song. But when I've heard the traditional bridal laments for the first time 5 years ago, I realized the melody is really similar to the song I dreamt. Crazy. And so I wanted to write a song, this song Seven Sisters, around that dream melody, but also borrow from the melody of these traditional laments, which is in a sense is actually quite bluesy. It uses kind of like a jazzy minor pentatonic scale, so hence the kind of jazz influence there. And then in terms of the lyrics, I was really trying to be the persona of the girl who is fighting and resisting this fate. And then at the very end, when she says, take back your control, it is this kind of anthem or this shout at the end that has that kind of collective voice in it. So it's a call to action. So you kind of go through the journey of her trying to resist all the different things and being told what to do all the time, be a good girl, be a good wife. But then at the very end, the message is like, no, okay, let's fuck all that. and let's try and do things on our own terms.
Right, because it's about empowering, you know, it's about being empowered in the choice and in the situation you are. And which is like Anne, you were saying just now, the ending is kind of almost an ambiguous ending where like you're having the audience decide what was the end result. Is she gonna get married or is she not? And then that's where like the words take back your control comes from, you know. It's like you get the person, the character within the music video, but then as the audience, we get to decide what her ending is. You know, like if you envision her continuing to get married, you're kind of like doing like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're saying, oh, she doesn't have a choice. But if you're deciding, you know what, no, for me, my headcanon is that she gets to walk away, she gets to choose, and she gets to leave, then that's like you're giving her the control to make that choice. But then also for us as the audience, it's reminding us that we have choices, even in situations where it seems like we don't. Like there's still a choice, whether you can make the best of it as much as you can, or if you just totally give in, you know. So I kind of saw it as that. And I think that's again about the resilience of women in these situations. Like these women had to be resilient through like the worst days of their lives and in the worst moments in their marriages, because some could have gone on to have, of course, happy marriages, and then some could have gone on to have unhappy marriages. But luckily, you know, a lot of these women, like again, in doing the research, like especially for the women that you met, Rainbow, their husbands are dead and gone, you know, so like they know
they're living a free life now.
They're living free now,
they're very
you know?
happy. They're very happy to tell me about it.
Right, they're living free now in music videos. I've been in a music video and getting to sing their traditional song, their traditional bridal lament in a music video showing all over the world, and they're like who won now? And it sounds kind of callous, but I'm from the Caribbean, and like a lot of women who are around the same age of the women in the music video in their 80s and their 90s were married very young in the Caribbean, and they didn't really have a say because their parents would be like, it was the thing, you know, if you're 16, 17, go get married, have children, but then you know what, the husbands die and leave the wives, and the wives are happy at the end of the day. Like my grandmother outlived my grandfather, okay, and she was very happy. Like, you know, well, not, yeah, she had her foibles, but like, you know, she was like, you know what, the marriage wasn't all it could have been crafted to be, and like she got to make her life the way she wanted it after he passed on. You know, she had her own she had her own business, and she had property, houses, and everything. She made her life for her. She lived her life on her own terms afterwards. So like for these women, like they get to have the chance to live their life on their own terms afterwards. So like the song is like take back your control, and they're living it at the end of the day.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a new perspective I wasn't expecting. But yeah.
It's sick.
It's true because like I think I had mentioned to Anne before we began recording. One of the reasons I was really interested in this music video is the bridal lament is actually something that is kind of common in a lot of like ethnic cultures around the world. Like in South Asian and South Indian cultures, they have like bridal laments, and even in Africa, they have like bridal laments where the brides would like the brides and like their female family members would sing songs about like missing the girl that's getting married, and like telling her to like make the marriage as best as she can, because like she's losing her family, she's losing her past. And then they'd be like have like mourners, wedding mourners, like people whose job it is to cry for the bride as she's going off to get married, so like it shows like these things are very like around the world, like cultures, women have all felt the same way, that marriage could be a lock, a cell, a prison, and they had to find a way to like voice their displeasure and voice their reality, like even if they couldn't talk about it, they could at least sing about it, and they recognize it. And I think that's where like the control is as well. Like they had the ability to verbalize and talk about their the things that are making them unhappy. And it's kind of like tied into the Nushu language. The Nushu language is basically a whole code where these women could talk about everything and anything they wanted, and men weren't allowed to say anything about it. Men couldn't interpret it because it wasn't taught to men, and it's about finding ways to use art, use music, use song, use language, use clothing, even to really tell the world how they felt.
Absolutely. And I think that, going back to the idea of that this is an old story, but at the same time it's contemporary, you could really think about issues of censorship today and surveillance and, this kind of political climate we're into. And so I think that was another inspiration for us in a way, and certainly for me, is to think about how people are ingenious in the way that they learn to communicate and get messages out there in these oppressive kind of contexts, be it like about women or other kind of social political situations. So yeah, I just think it's really amazing to see how this struggle is so universal and across time and place. Yeah.
And go ahead, Anne. I knew you were going to say something.
No, I was gonna say, like, for this project, what I really loved about it was that it felt like there was kind of like an intergenerational collaboration in a way. Like Rainbow was and everyone else was like so inspired by the original bridal laments, and kind of took that and in a way created something that also, I mean, I hope in some way also gave back to that community as well. So it's quite circular as well, in a sense that we can also give them more attention, and give that story more attention, while also being inspired by like their own stories. And even if like their stories maybe are not, I mean, like I'm not in an arranged marriage, so it's not, it's not directly the same story, but like there's so many different elements that you can also relate to. And yeah, basically from the song as well, like, I'm sure Rainbow, like when you wrote the lyrics as well, it's not just, it's not just simply that perspective. It's like there's many different perspectives, many different types of lives that can use that perspective and those feelings.
And I think just to add to that too, and I think what was also really nice is that at the end of the video clip, there's this kind of epilogue, or this like special behind the scenes, where it shows me with the grannies singing another traditional song together in the village. And at that point, we hadn't seen each other for 3 years because of COVID. I couldn't go back to Hong Kong, so it was the first time I'd seen them in 3 years. And so much has happened in that time. They're getting older, and the world's changed so much in that time. And so to have that as the final bit in the short film, in the video clip, I think was just a really great way to, give kind of platform them in their element, but also the intergenerational relationship that we've built over time through, collaborating and mutually sharing stories with each other.
Yeah, it felt quite like kind of magical on set in a way. It's like you basically I'm not sure why you guys started singing, but like
yeah, it was organic. It was completely organic. So I was like, let's sing this like New Year celebration song. And then
yeah, and then
we just went for
suddenly
it.
like everyone's got their phones out and they're like, whoa, this is really cool. But yeah, you could feel, I think a lot of people when we finished with that and we went home, like you just got the feeling that like this is really meaningful and this is really special. Yeah, so that was cool.
Yeah, I love that was included at the end of the music video, because I think it was really special that you added in that part at the end of the music video, and because it really gives the audience a chance to actually see the women that this music video is representing. That this music video is kind of like not documenting, but also, I guess you could say, in a way, immortalizing them, like giving them a chance to have their voices literally be heard and be seen. And I think that's an important thing for the audience to realize, that these are real people. These are real women, and they're still there, and they're still worthy of acknowledgement, and of being seen and shown. And like these women are still like alive and kicking, and I think that's amazing. So like my last question for you, Rainbow, I want you to talk a bit. Can you talk a bit about any conversations you had with your mom about the music video, and like what it means to her that you are like documenting the language and learning it, because you're actually learning the language and you're documenting it in song, which is your chosen method of communicating in art?
Well, yeah, I mean, this whole project has brought my mum and I so much closer together. It's been incredible. And mum really is a cultural consultant for everything I do on anything Weitou. I think what was really cool was like the whole idea was really, it was me wanting to connect with my mum more. And it started off by just me asking her a simple question of like, can you teach me a few phrases in your mother tongue? Because she never got the chance to pass it on to us. So I always thought that this is kind of like my mum's story in a way. But then I heard her actually talk to somebody else recently and said, like, this is her mum's story. And I was just like, oh my goodness, yes, of course. It is for her. When she sees it, she thinks about her mum. And now I feel very moved every time I think of the possibility of my mum relearning these songs with me and being able to sing one of the lullabies in Weitou to, my future child. So she loves the video clip. She loves being part of what I'm doing now. She's often involved in my performances, and I think it's also given her a sense of empowerment, because when she was growing up, she was also like very made to feel quite ashamed of her Weitou culture and her language. It was seen as kind of like lower class, and so she should speak proper Cantonese and all this. But now it's great to see her really embrace. And she's always been a very proud Weitou woman, but now it's like she can be public about it and just be so reinvigorated with the attention as well from other people of wanting to know her story and her mum's story and her mum's story. Goes on and on and on.
I think that's great, because being able to hold on to indigenous cultures and practices is very important, especially in the age that we live in, where, like you mentioned, surveillance, but also technology, where like we have all of this technology in recording. Our phones are at the tip of our hands, they're able to record a music video or a song. But like you can talk to someone and say, okay, you're speaking in Weitou, could you, like, I want to record this so that I have it, I have this memorialized so that it's not forgotten. Because unfortunately, when it comes to modernization, the ways of our ancestors unfortunately die out. And like there's so many languages that have been lost, so many cultural practices that have been lost, clothing styles, traditional like things are lost. And I think it is important that we use the technology and the tools we have at our hands to hold on to what we do have. And a music video like this, I think, is actually a really smart way to do it. And in song in particular, because like even if I don't know Weitou, but I know 2 words now. I know the word. I know the word for sister, right? And I think that's an amazing thing. It's like it's a gift for like anyone who hears music video, you know, and then if they're like me, would take the initiative to do some research, you know, and to read upon it, and also read upon Hong Kong culture and Hong Kong history, because it is like Hong Kong is changing. And like one of my wishes and dreams is to go to Hong Kong, because I grew up watching Hong Kong films. I grew up watching Hong Kong actions and stuff. And like I hopefully, if I ever get there, I'll do it, make it my mission to try to find somewhere in like where I can go to like speak to someone who does know the language, because at least I would at least have that kind of like that touchstone. But the music video, I hope, should encourage people, like if they ever go to Hong Kong, to do some research, you know, and like look it up.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that's the whole point. And I think that was one of the main things I said to Anne in our initial conversations is like, you know, this Weitou language and all this culture, I don't want it to live behind glass in a museum. I want it to feel alive. I want it to feel embodied. And I think you're right, Caroline, in that the music video clip is like this really mass medium, and because of, you know, choosing not to translate sister, for example, and keeping it in Zimoy, it does plant these little seeds, and the curious listener will then go and do some research or will look it up. And I think that's, you know, you don't want to give everything away and spoon feed it, because then people just kind of like forget. But giving them a sense of curiosity, I think, is a great conversation starter. So I'm really glad to hear that, you know, that you also get the sense from that, get a sense of that from watching the film.
I do, and I hopefully maybe one day you'll do like a full feature length documentary about it, because I'd be very interested in that. Because you did a short documentary where you talked about your journey a bit, but I would be like, I love a feature length documentary. So maybe one day, and that may be
yeah, a future
Let's
project
go.
in the works.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, Rainbow, you have like your album is coming out this year.
Yeah, I think my album's coming out this year, so it is a full length album featuring songs like this, like Seven Sisters. And then I do have a theatre show as well, which is a one-woman show in which I retell the bridal lament story and my journey of learning it, and share the new songs as well. So yeah, there's definitely that element, but I think there is something about, say, a documentary which goes really behind the scenes, and when you can really hear the women's voices and our interactions, that would be so lovely. So I'll manifest it. Hopefully it'll happen. And yeah.
That would be great. And thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to talk to me about this music video and about your art and your work, because I'm really fascinated by it. I'm always fascinated by films or music videos that balance old and new. I'm always fascinated by balancing of old and new. And like sometimes I'm like, the more advanced our culture and our society becomes, the more I think the more important it is to pay attention to our past. I'm always fascinated by the dualities like these in music videos and films. So thank you both so much for making the music video and like introducing the world, I guess you could say, to Weitou language and culture in this medium. Medium.
Yeah, thank you for your questions and for your time as well. It's been really nice to talk about it and like give a little bit more detail behind the project. I think with the screening, I haven't really talked to Rainbow that much about it, but I've given context to the story, but you know, this is like another level of depth which I haven't been able to like really get into. So yeah, it's been really fun.
Absolutely.